Hi guys, welcome back to 2.2. Today we're going to talk about histograms. In our last section, we talked about frequency tables, and when we graph that frequency table, we have something called a histogram. And a histogram is simply a graph that consists of bars of equal width drawn adjacent to each other. Now, if there are gaps, they won't be adjacent to each other. Okay? So the horizontal scale of the histogram represents basically the classes of quantitative data value, and the vertical scale represents the frequencies. So the heights of the bars simply correspond to the frequency values. Now, there are some important uses to histograms, and the first most important reason is that it visually displays the shape of the distribution of data. It shows the location of the center of data, and it shows the spread of the data, as well as it identifies outliers. Now, in our relative frequency histogram, it's the same shape and horizontal scale as a regular histogram, but the vertical scale is marked with relative frequencies instead of the actual frequencies. So on this left-hand side here, you have a relative frequency instead of just the regular frequency values. So what you see here is that we have them marked by their frequency value. But if I wanted to look at a relative frequency histogram, I would take this 11 and divide it by 50, and I would mark each of these by 50. So if you notice, the x-axis is the quantitative data values for the classes, and the y value is simply the frequency. But if I want a relative frequency histogram, I simply change these y values to our fractions that we learned. All right, so in the critical thinking process of interpreting histograms, we're really looking at the center of the data, the variation, the shape of the distribution, and whether or not there are any outliers, and time. So I want you to remember CV dot as the mnemonic for what can be learned about a histogram. Now, there are 4 common distribution shapes to a histogram, and the first one is going to be a bell-shaped curve. The second one is going to be a uniform distribution. The third is skewed to the right, and the fourth is skewed to the left. So when we come back, we'll go over each of those common distribution shapes.